In the previous episode, Aurobindo and Josh were tasked with filling in the blanks on the given equation log base 3 of blank plus log base 3 of blank equals log base 3 of 1000. In this episode, they will fill in the blanks of a similar equation, log base 3 of x plus log base 3 of y equals log base 3 of blank. They will then explain what each part would mean in a moldy food context to justify why the two sides of the equation are equal.
Okay, I know the answer.
You think it's x times y?
Yep.
So what are you drawing in, Arvina?
I'm drawing in a factor of x.
And why are you doing that?
Because we're
Why
saying
not?
that the growth factor is 3, so... What? Okay, nice.
It looks like Aurobindo is saying that log base 3 of x should
Over
be
here.
Do you think that is right or no?
Sure.
So why is the amount of time log base 3 of x?
Because each time there's 1 hour, and if you multiply the number of 1 hours, you get the actual number.
What?
So there's a growth factor of 3 each hour, and
Okay.
you multiply the number of 1s to get the number of hours, so you multiply the number of 3s. And there's log base 3 x 3s in x.
How do you know that?
3 to the log base 3 of x is equal to x.
Okay, so what should we do now? So can you use your picture to explain why this log base 3 of x plus log base 3 of y is equal to log base 3 of xy?
So we see that log base 3 of x and log base 3 of y are getting added, and then you'll see that you add this. So that means if you add this plus this, you get this.
And what do each of the things, what could they represent in the moldy food context?
This represents a growth factor over x, and this represents a growth factor over y, and this represents a growth factor over xy.
And what do the logs represent?
They represent the number of 3s that this xy has, and then the number of 3s that this y has, and then the number of 3s that this x has.
What about in terms of food? What do they represent?
Over this amount of time, the mold grows by this. And
Okay.
over this amount of time, the mold grows by this. And over this amount of time, the mold grows by this.
In this episode, Aurobindo and Josh explained why log base 3 of x plus log base 3 of y equals log base 3 of x times y. They explained that log base 3 of x represents the number of hours it took for the amount of mold to increase by a factor of x, and that log base 3 of y represents the number of hours it takes for the amount of mold to increase by a factor of y. This means their sum is the amount of time it takes for the amount of mold to increase by a factor of x and then by a factor of y. In other words, this is the amount of time it takes for the amount of mold to increase by a factor of xy. However, this amount of time can also be expressed as log base 3 of xy. This explains why log base 3 of x plus log base 3 of y is the same as or equal to log base 3 of x times y. In this unit, Josh and Aurobindo explained why several mathematical relationships hold. First, they explained why 3 to the p times 3 to the e equals 3 to the p plus e, where p and e are any exponents. Then they explained why 3 to the a to the b equals 3 to the a times b. Finally, after exploring what a logarithm was and developing two interpretations for logarithms in the moldy food context, in this lesson they explained why log base 3 of x plus log base 3 of y equals log base 3 of x times y.